cannot wait to tell you about our speaker, Kelly Hollis. She doesn't consider herself a speaker. She's a nurse. She wears a lot of hats. She's a part of the KGM speaker team, but don't tell her. We put her on the website. I don't know if she knows that. She's been married to the love of her life for more than 35 years. She has 2 boys, one that lives on the other side of the veil. And y'all, let me tell you something. I sent you this message today that I read in my quiet time. It's from Psalm 9:14, and it says, "Save me, so I can praise you publicly at Jerusalem's gate, so I can rejoice that you have rescued me." And if that does not encompass who Kelly is and just how she breathes life into Jesus' message, you're about to experience it firsthand if you've never done it. Before I invite her up here, let's pray really quick. Heavenly Father, we already know you're here. Just look at all these beautiful shining faces. God, I thank you for every single woman that walked into this door. I know they had to leave a lot at home. They had to leave a lot at work. God, I know that you have a message for each and every one of us. Give us eyes to see and ears to hear the message that you have for us individually from Kelly. God, anoint her. Let every word that comes out of her mouth be exactly as you have called it to be. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, you guys, we're going to bring Miss Kelly up. I told her I would do like a liturgical dance or something if that made her feel better, and she said no. So she's going to walk up. All right, guys, Miss Kelly Hollis.
Thank you for coming. I cannot believe this room right now. I started with KGM when they first started, and we maybe had 2 or 3 tables. So to see this on a rainy day, my girlfriend called me yesterday, and she said, "I'm coming." And I said, "Well, that'll be 2 of us because we've seen the weather." So I'm very grateful for all of you being here. Last October, Tara asked me if I would like to speak on marriage and relationships for an upcoming KGM Luncheon. And I said to myself, no, I would not. And that's basically because this is such a broad topic. Like, ideally, I'd love to do a whole series on marriage with the speaker team, with questions and answers and a panel, but that is not what was offered to me. And I have 30 minutes, 35 if I pay Melissa off. So I told Tara, let me talk to Bruce about it. So I went home and we had facilitated several marriage classes at our church. So I wanted to get his spin on it. So Bruce said, you should do it. You should do it. We're happy people. And a big portion of that is because we have a really healthy marriage. So wise counsel from your husband. A healthy marriage, or lack thereof, will impact everything and everyone that you come in contact with. It's the training ground for how you resolve conflict, how you delegate tasks, how you honor a contract, and most importantly, how you treat the people that you love in your life. But it's complicated. It's complicated, as is anything that you add people to. You know, I love the church, but as soon as you add people to a church, now it's like, I mean, I love most of the church. I don't like all of the church. But first I want to say 2 things. One, I am not a professional marriage counselor by any stretch. This is just 36 years of marriage that has had very many ups and devastating downs that we probably will not resolve until we get to the other side of the veil. And the other thing is, I wanted to say, if you are someone that is here that is going through a divorce, or you come from divorce, or you're in some sort of abusive relationship, this message is going to seem very untimely. Here's the thing. The enemy will try to talk you into, he'll try to isolate you and say to you, you're the only one. You're the only Christian that has ever had this experience. You're the only one that's in an abusive relationship. You are the only one. No one will ever be able to relate to your problems. But I can promise you this. God is not in the business of guilt or shame or accusations. He's in the business of redemption. And there's no condemnation in Christ. That is Romans 8:1. So if you're here and things have not worked out with your marriage, I would suggest you take all that information he's going to speak to you and bring it to your next relationship. Tara mentioned this verse last month on a totally different topic, which is so cool how the word sometimes can speak to you in one way, and the very next month the same exact verse will speak to you in a different way. Isaiah 43:18-19, for I am about to do something new. I will make a path through the wilderness. I will create rivers in the dry wasteland. God is never, ever, ever going to waste your pain. He's always going to use it for something else. And so today is just a broad stroke on marriage because there's just so much that's involved with this topic. My husband and I met on a Carnival cruise line many years ago. I was 22 and he was 24. I mean, we were babies. And we were not Christians. We had a surface knowledge of faith, but we certainly were not walking with the Lord. But the Lord will meet you. He'll meet you wherever you at in your walk in life. And he met us very quickly after we got married. He will see a warrior for his cause long before that is ever on your radar. He sees it in you. And in the early days, listen, things are pretty easy. Like, it's not work. It's like, where do you want to go for dinner? I don't care. Where do you want to go for dinner? Does this look okay? You look good in everything. You know, it sounds expensive. You're worth every penny. But as time goes on, you know, little differences start to pile up. And my husband is an ultra organized person. And I am not. I'm not at all. He's early for everything that he's ever gone through in life. He grew up in a family that was almost militaristic about time schedules and organization, just a very organized family. And I grew up moving every 2 years. I went to boarding school in Europe when I was 13 because my father took a job overseas and there was not a school for me. So I had to really figure things out on my own, and organization was not the top of my list. Fast forward, I mean, this unorganized lifestyle of mine was on his last nerve. You know, I thrive in chaos. I don't mind clutter. I know he does. It's something that's important to him. He likes a tidy home. So when small things start to pile up, resentment can set in. So number one, a healthy marriage must be intentional. It has to be intentional. It's not only marrying the right person, it's also being the right partner. I'm going to say that one more time. It's not marrying the right person. It's also being the right partner. So this is a two-way street. You need to do your work in the marriage. We all have information about our spouses that other people don't know. I know mine likes an orderly home, so I'm going to make an effort to keep the house tidy. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, am I ever going to be a 10? No. On my best day, I might be a 7. And my best friend is here today. She'll probably say a 6. But I'm intentional about it because I know it's something that matters to him. For some of you, that's not your thing. Maybe you're a social person and you don't, and your husband's not. So you schedule the time when you're going to leave a party, or you bring a second car so he can go and do his thing. Or maybe he's an outdoor person and you're not an outdoor person, so you let him go away with his fishing friends for the weekend, because the last place you want to be is on a fishing boat with your husband, right? So whatever that looks like for you, meet them halfway. I have a really unusual way of organizing my paperwork. And recently, my husband was looking for the homeowner's insurance policy for a property that we have. So he went to the homeowner's insurance policy file to look for that. And it wasn't in the homeowner's insurance policy file. So he came looking for me, where's the policy? And I'm like, duh, it's in the July file because that's when I pay the homeowner's insurance. Right? Now, he could have said all manner of things about that disorganized way of filing, but he didn't. He was intentional about his words. But there was a different dialogue going on in his head. He wants peace in the house, just like I want peace in the house. Peace is gold. It's gold, Jerry. It's gold. Peace in the house is worth it. So he tapered. I was making an effort. He knew I was able to produce the policy in the July file, but he knows that I was making an effort at trying to keep this system going. So my second point is acknowledge the effort. This is such a simple thing, but it's so impactful. He could have completely shamed me on this. He could have said, your system doesn't work. Like, you're an idiot. Why aren't you me? But that's the point. I'm not him. God wired me very differently than he wired him. And that's what makes us great. That's what makes us work. And he knows it. So he's going to acknowledge, hey, I know it's not in the right place, but thanks for finding it for me. I'm not jealous of his gift. I'm not jealous that he's got the organizational gift and I don't. Because I've got a lot of strengths that he doesn't have. And he's got ones that I don't have, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that he helps me with all my organizational fails. Don't get in the habit of taking your spouse for granted. We all have systems in our house, jobs that we do. He mows the lawn, but just because that's under his umbrella doesn't mean I'm not going to say, hey, the lawn looks great. Thanks for mowing the lawn. It's so simple, and he does the same for me. I still am someone that I love to cook. That's one of my favorite things to do. And so I cook dinner every night. And there's not a night that goes by he doesn't say, thanks for making dinner. Even when dinner's icky, which is, there's plenty of fails. But he always makes a point of saying thank you. That's what we need to do. We need to say thank you. Thank you, even if it's under their umbrella, taking the trash out, bringing the kids to their sporting events, whatever that looks like, you need to be grateful. And it's biblical. The Lord says, 1 Thessalonians, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. During COVID, my college boy was home for a semester, which was, fun. And we just wanted to keep him busy. Just for mental health, we needed to keep him busy. My husband and I are both considered essential workers, so we were able to leave the house. And at the time, we were doing a renovation, and I asked him, will you replace all the gold knobs, on the doorknobs with these black matte doorknobs? And there was a few dozen of these things, so it was a big job. Well, Bruce and I come home from work that day, and Brian walks us around the entire house and shows us every single doorknob that he's replaced. And there's only so much you can say about a doorknob. But he was so proud of himself for doing this. And it was clear that he wanted us to acknowledge his work. So just acknowledge people when they're doing something, whether that's a job of theirs under their umbrella or not, acknowledge it. 3, watch your words. My husband has a construction company, and in the early days, he was working 18, 19-hour days to get this thing up and moving. And one day he came home and he's like, hey, can you mail this package for me? And I was working full-time too, but I wasn't working anywhere near the hours that he was working. And so I said, yeah, I'll mail the package. Well, next day comes, I run out of the house, go to work, completely forget about the package. He comes home, 9, 10 o'clock at night, package is still on the kitchen table. He's like, hey, if you're too busy, I can mail this package, but it needs to be mailed. I'm so sorry. I promise. I will mail it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, I'm running late for work. He's ensured that I'm gonna grab this package because it's right, he's put it right in the center of the front door. And I'm running late, I run out to my car, I walk over the package. I'm like, that's a weird place to put a package. And off I go to work, completely forgetting about the package. Now it's day 2, he comes home, and he's like, you can only imagine, he's so mad. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, listen, I will do it if you need me to. I'm like, no, I've got this covered. But the important part is he really did guard his tongue in this situation. Like, he was triggered. He's working long hours. He's not sleeping well. He's got the pressures of work and getting this company. It's providing for our family. He's stressed. And now this package that he has literally put in the front door is still sitting there. But he guarded his tongue. Which is a lesson for all of us. To guard, just pause for a second. Is it really worth, degrading that person, whatever is going on in your mind? The next morning I wake up, he's an engineer, so he has jury-rigged some sort of pulley system that the package is hanging from the door jamb. So I literally I have to walk into this package in order to miss it. And, so of course I had to laugh at that, and we still laugh about that. But he intentionally guarded his words in that situation. There are a ton of warnings about this in the Bible. I know, if you've been in the book, guard your tongue. It's like a double-edged sword. Keep your mouth, zip it. 2 of my favorites, Proverbs 21:23. Those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. I mean, how many times? I am completely imperfect in all of this that I'm talking about today. But this one it's important. It's really important to there are times that I say things and I'm like, that just is not going to age well. That's not going to age well. And Ephesians 4:29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, not your needs, according to their needs. We have a boating friend of ours, and for the purpose of this story, I'll name her Karen. And Karen grew up boating. She is the master of her vessel, and all others bow to her expertise. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. She is actually a really good boater, and she knows all the waterways and she knows all the water rules. She's a good person to have on your team if you're boating. But we got back from that weekend and she needed to get her boat out of the water. And so she docks her boat, she ties her boat up, she runs up to the parking lot, she gets her F-150, she backs it up, she's got this huge trailer, she hops out of the F-150, goes back to the dock, undies her boat, gets the boat up onto the trailer, and then hops on the trailer and starts winching this boat so it's a tight fit. All the while, her husband is on the dock watching all this unfold and not lifting a finger to help her. And now the other guys in our car, there's 3 couples, the other guys are kind of rolling in I think she could use some help, she's sweating, And he said something I'll never forget. He said, I've tried to help in the past, and nothing I do satisfies Karen, so I've just stopped trying. Wow. This wasn't a surprise. We had spent all weekend with these people. There was 0 respect. There was 0 encouragement. They were nipping at each other all weekend. And Karen had belittled her husband so badly that he no longer wanted to help his wife. And it was so important for her to get that boat exactly the way she wanted it. She's a control person. She had to be in control of that situation. That was more important than having any kind of relationship with her husband. God, it's so sad. Women have there are many women that control is an issue for you. Control. I have to control every situation there is. And listen, control is such an illusion. It's not, you have very little control over what is going on in your life. Some things you do, but it's very little. You have the power to build our loved ones up, or we have the power to tear them down. Once you say something, if it's hurtful, it's easy. You can forgive. We can forgive. We're called to forgive 7 times 77. We're called to forgive. But to forget harmful words, that's another story. God's real good at that. We are not. Proverbs 18:19 says, "It is easier to conquer a strong city. It's easier to conquer a strong city than to win back a friend whom you've offended. Their walls go up, making it nearly impossible to win them back." That is a hard truth. That's a hard truth. A great way to check yourself before you speak in anger, a great way to check yourself is to remember the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22-23. Ask yourself if you're acting with love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Self-control is a big one. And listen, we're called to do this. If you're a Christian in here, we're called to act that way. We are called to look different than every other average Joe. We're called for that. We're called to be Christ-like. Christ-like. That's an incredibly hard task. I don't know how you guys are, but being Christ-like is hard. It's hard. And you have to check yourself all the time. But that's what we're called to do. Every day we should be getting just a little bit more like Christ. It's a tall order, worth the effort. Ephesians 5:1-2, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. It sounds great in theory, very hard to do in the heat of the moment, but it's worth it to pause. Just pause. Your words can tear someone apart. 4 is communication, kind of similar to watch your words. There's a right way and a wrong way to communicate things. And typically, if there's an issue in your marriage or any relationship, it's good just to get it out in the air, but don't let it fester for too long. My husband's an engineer, and he likes the facts. He likes the facts. He doesn't want any details. I'm the opposite. I want every detail. Tell me the details. What happened? He wants the facts. Well, I asked my husband, "How was your day?" He'll say, "Good." I'll say, "Well, what did you do?" "Oh, I went to Cary, I went to Capitol Hill, and I had some paperwork." Now, if you ask me how my day was, you're absolutely going to get a story about some character I've met throughout the day. I mean, I love the details. I love to embellish, and that's just the differences in personalities. And recently, he was interrupting and ending my stories before they needed to be ended. And I'm like, it was really ticking me off. I was like, what is the deal here? And he was especially doing it with his family. Like, I'd start telling a story when I was with his family, and he'd abruptly end the story and start talking about something else. And I probably waited too long to address that problem. Probably did. It was just really getting to me. And he finally, he did it one time, and I was like, okay, that's it, you know. And now I'm triggered. I'm triggered, and I'm angry. But I was like, I'm gonna pause on this. So I said, listen, there's something that's really bothering me. We got to talk about it this weekend. We're going out to dinner, and we are talking in a neutral place because I think what's happening at home. Nobody's around to hear my language. I mean, we're going to a neutral zone, and I need to talk to you about this issue. There is a Bible verse that says, "Don't let the sun go down in your anger." I forget which Bible verse that is. And listen, that's really great advice. You know, don't go to bed angry. In other words, with your partner. But if emotions are high and you know that you're going to say something probably that you are going to regret, it's just a good idea to walk away from. Like, either go for a walk, put some worship music on. Don't address the problem right then, because you probably are going to say something that you don't mean. Anyways, when I finally get around to telling him, I'm a better storyteller than you. Like, what is the deal? You keep interrupting me. He had no idea he was doing this. None. And he genuinely apologize, because typically he likes to see the world through my lens, because I have a very different way of looking at things. I look almost at everything through humor. So he likes to hear my stories. So he apologizes and said, so now if he interrupts me, he'll say something like, I'm so sorry for interrupting. But, and then he'll finish whatever he has to say. Anyways, it's communication's important. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Don't blast your husband after he's come home from a long day of work. You have no idea what happened in his stressful day. Same with us. We have days that are just so stressful. It's not the time to blast someone after work, or in the heat of a moment when things are emotional. 5 is community. Finding couples or families that are in the same stage of life that you're in is such a gift. It's such a gift. 4 years ago, my son, we became empty nesters. And many of you know my story. We lost my older son very unexpectedly when he was 16. And that made the 3 of us a very, very tight unit. We don't agree on everything, but we are a tight unit. And I knew when he was on his way to college, he did not go to school locally. He went down to Atlanta to school. He was swimming for his school. He had a big chapter ahead of him. And thinking about mom every day is probably not on the list. But I knew I was going to think of him every single day. I knew I was really going to miss him. So the empty nest stage, I knew I needed help navigating that. I needed some help navigating those waters. And I knew there were 3 couples at church. I didn't know them very well, but they were just ahead of me in this empty nesting phase. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to invite them over for dinner. I can cook. I'm going to invite them over for dinner, and I'm going to see if they're interested in just, starting a group, talking about these things. Anyways, that was 4 years ago. We meet about once or twice a month still. We typically do some sort of Bible study, and we just talk. We talk about what God's doing in our lives. We laugh, we cry, we super vulnerable with each other. It's just a lot of love in that room. And this Bible verse is probably one of my very favorite Bible verses. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. That's such a great verse. Community is so important. I was super nervous about coming here today. Melissa's right, I do not consider myself a speaker. And so I get nervous when I speak. And I can't tell you how many people reached out and told me they were praying for me. Hey, I'm thinking of you. This is God's message, not your message. Thank you for doing. I know the team. I know the KGM team. They've been on their knees probably for a month. Lord, we got Kelly going. We have to stop praying. It's not just community. The time that you spend investing in friendships, particularly Christian friends, there's a difference. When my son passed away, we got thousands of cards. You could tell which ones were the Christian cards, because there's a hope in eternity. Christian friends, invest in making Christian friends. It'll come back to you tenfold. And then my last point, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I do appreciate all the red in the room. And I would be remiss in telling a message on marriage if I didn't mention sex. I'm not going to go into any length on that. That is a whole other KGM luncheon someday. But I will say this, God wired us very differently than he wired men in this particular department. And I'll give you an example of that. By day, I'm a nurse, and I work in women's health. And if you come in for your annual, I'm going to ask you, are you sexually active? And our young girls, we work right next to NC State. Many girls, not Christians necessarily, are you sexually active? Well, not currently. And so the next question is, when was the last time you were active? And they'll say, 6 days ago. We actually consider that active. And then you go to the other end of the spectrum, and you ask our 50, 60, 70-year-old mature women, are you sexually active? And they're typically like, I mean, if I have to. I'm married. So a very big gap between our youngs and our senior women. So all I'm going to say, I'm not going to go into this at all, but I am going to say this. There is a difference between being a roommate and being a wife. And just know the difference, because this is an area that the enemy can attack this so easily. And in my line of work, I do see a lot of affairs and all of that, the other side of not paying attention to intimacy. So there's that. That's all I'm going to say on that. But along those lines, finishing up on your tables, I cut out these little hearts on your tables. And so I'm going to give you an assignment for tomorrow. You can take as many as you want. I think there might be extras, I'm not sure. I want you to write a note of encouragement or a Bible verse or something that you like about that. This doesn't have to be your husband, by the way. It can be a friend, it can be a coworker, it can be one of your children. Just a note of encouragement. Put it somewhere that they would not necessarily see or look for it. Like if on a computer, if your husband stays at home, maybe on his computer or on his steering wheel when he goes to work, or maybe in an underwear drawer or on a mirror. Just put a note of encouragement so that they know that you are actually thinking of them, that they are important in your life. And 1 Thessalonians, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. So that's what those are there for. The last thing I'm going to say is just some resources. This book is called Love and Respect. None of these are at the table, but you can get them on Amazon, all of them. Love and Respect. This is like the mini Bible for marriage. I don't know how many people have done this. A lot of churches do Bible studies on this book called Love and Respect. This is a great book for marriage. If you're looking for any tips on marriage, that's a good one. This one, if you're having trouble in a relationship, whether that's a spouse, a child, a friend, this little book is such a great book. It's called The Kindness Challenge, 30 Days to Improve Any Relationship. This, what you do is you find a target person. The target person does not know that they are your target. And for 30 days, you do these acts of kindness, and they give you all those ideas in the book. It's actually a game changer. I have a friend of mine who's been married just as long as I have. She did this, and within 24 hours, her target was her husband. Within 24 hours, her husband said, something's going on. Something's going on. So anyways, it has all kinds of great ideas. And the last one, I didn't talk about this. This is called Couples Who Pray. I didn't talk about, there's just so much you could talk about in marriage. If this took us a long time to actually pray as a couple out loud, holding hands, praying as a couple. Whether that's for your family, yourselves, your extended family, but praying out loud. There's something intimate about praying out loud with your spouse that is just kind of a game changer. So. Anyways, I highly recommend that. This is an old one. Denzel Washington chimes in with his wife, Kathy Lee Gifford, Donna. It's a bunch of celebrities that pray together as a couple. So highly recommend those. Again, all three you can get on Amazon. That's about. I think I've made it in the 30 minutes, 35, and I did not pay Melissa a dime. But thank you. Thanks for coming out today.
You guys, did I warn you that love and Jesus and humor is just going to spill out of her? We have a few more minutes. That's the great news. So the one thing I love about what we were talking about, Kelly, is it applies to any relationship. So maybe you're not married, maybe you're divorced, maybe you're still single, maybe you have children, or your mom, your dad. Any of these principles, aside from the last one, could apply to any of your relationships. So guys, for a few minutes, talk among your tables, maybe talk about something that stood out to you in her talk today, or something you might try, a little challenge you might try to take home for Valentine's Day. And I'll come back in a few minutes to close us out.